4. Anyway, welcome. For those who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Doug Slocum, and I have the honor of being the president of the Michigan State Air and Space Forces Association. I still have trouble getting all that out in one. Air and Space Forces Association here for the state, and recently on the national board back in Washington, D.C. But, you know, one of my favorite times, what motivates me to do this is exactly why we're here today. I hate getting started because I love the networking. People are talking, good things are happening, but we do have some things we want to share, some information to convey, a guest speaker for you, but nobody's ever going to kick you out when we're done here either. So feel free to keep talking, keep networking and everything else. It's wonderful. Today our theme we're going to talk about is rapid global mobility. Who else better to do that than our Air and Space Forces, but we'll come back to that here in just a little bit. Per our jointness here, joint being we're joint service, work with other services, we have our ambassador from the Navy League who's going to come up and sing our national anthem, Ms. Janina. Would you please? And if you don't know the flags, they're right there.
Good morning, everyone. As is my custom, please join me in singing the national anthem since we all love that song so much. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Janina. I should have gotten you up here singing this. I forgot you were here. It's like, wait a minute, he sings. All right, if we could real quick, our wonderful hosts here today, not only the genre, and they always pay respect to our military, our first responders, but what a great place for food. They don't even open till 11. They do this for us. They're wonderfully accommodating and always great to work with. Mission Barbecue, big round of applause, please. All right, our wonderful sponsors. I think if we go numerically, where's Team AEW? Are you all over here on one table? Almost. Woohoo! Oh, almost all. Yeah, oh, Steve, you're hitting back there. But anyway, thank you all for your continued support. We appreciate it a ton. I don't think, I'm looking through the list. Brian, always. The fact that he dual hats always throws me off. He's on my team, and he's a sponsor. So, Brian, thank you very much. He's the Aero Retirement Options LLC right there. No Ray, no there. I think. Oh, Rick Velocity, where are you? There you are. Thank you, sir, representing. Are you like technically part of Velocity? Sort of? Anyway, you're the ambassador for Velocity today. One way or the other. But sponsorships really do help the world go round for us. I mean, there's a lot of things we do that take resources, so a big thank you to our sponsor for helping us not just do events like this and get the word out, but also the Stellar Explorers, the Cyber Patriot, which is going on as we speak, youth competitions and other things we could get into and talk about. But for my team right here, most of them are sporting around their cool little shirts with their names and stuff on it. Just raise your hands if you would for my team. All right? Rick, did we ever get you a shirt? We need to get you a shirt so you can look better. But you know why we're doing this? I forgot. There was one thing. Every year, Air and Space Forces Association, we have a big convention in September. They give out awards and everything. The way they do the attendance for the field awards, a lot of times the folks aren't necessarily there in Washington, D.C. But they announced some of the award winners so far for this year. And while I was talking about my team, I would like to say one of the awards they give out is called Medal of Merit, MOM, M-O-M, the Medal of Merit. And since he's here with us today, I would just like to say, he doesn't know this yet, but one of our recipients is Mr. Brian Berkmeyer right here. He has the toughest job. He does videos and he has to try and make me look good. All right? Do you have any much photoshopping and all that takes? Because I don't do makeup or anything, so. But anyway, we did get to see from Janina, who was our Navy League. I still have the DC-3S up there. Sorry, Ron, I never updated this slide. Everything else I think I got. But now it's just Mary and Ron Lamparter. All right, but thank you always for your support. That's good. Elected officials and staffers, I know I'm going to mess this up if I try and do this. Hands up if you would for me real quick, all right? County Commissioner, thank you. Aragona's team, John James' team. Who else have we got? Tony, the clerk. I always wonder what clerking is. I have to go look it up. What is the verb clerk? Conjugate the verb clerking to clerk, clerked, etc., etc. So thank you, Tony, as always, my friend. We already talked about my team. Next month is the only lunch we're going to do all year. All right? We're going to go out to Selfridge. We're going to go to Starbase. I haven't talked to Mission Barbecue about catering for us, but I think we're going to have them come out and bring us a lunch. We're going to go to Starbase and talk about the cool things that happen, STEM education for elementary school kids out there, and get spend some time, do a tour, be a little hands-on, and get an update on what's going on with Starbase, because there's a lot, and it's changing, and it'll change between now and then. But stand by for information about that. Not sure what we're going to do in September yet. But in October, we have that strange guy at the end, my former commander-in-chief here in the Michigan National Guard, Governor Snyder, who's very much into the cyber business at this point. All right, so our talking points, if you haven't heard this, this is our mantra. The big three things right now, our United States Air Force is the smallest, oldest, and least ready that it has ever been in its history since 1947. This comes from the Mitchell Institute. This is not my... And if you want to talk any specifics on what I'm getting at right here is there are challenges, recapitalization. And when we look at what's happening at Selfridge, oh, by the way, all my Selfridge folks, since we have such a great contingent today, hands up, we have the Commander, General Brian Potter with us. We have our guest speaker, and we'll introduce her in a minute. And then we've got Chief, and I don't know if you know this, but when somebody makes Chief, they actually have to go downtown and officially change their first name legally and all to Chief, because he no longer has a first name. So Chief, it's great to have you here. And Sergeant Major, you're hiding over here too with us. All right, thank you on the Army Guard side. Thank you. All right, and then our primary adversary, of course, is bigger, better, and more capable than they've ever been in their history. And that trend is what we're trying to address, and Congress has been addressing, and Selfridge is on the leading edge of that with the conversion to the KC-46 tankers, as well as the recently announced F-15EX. But I'll let them talk about that more than me at this point, but that is what we always like to talk about. From the force structure standpoint, we're going to be talking about rapid global mobility. So just from my last year's presentation where we talked about the structure of the Air Force, I just want to walk through very quickly the different assets that we have as a primer to introducing our guest speaker here in a minute. But the KC-46, this is the tanker that will be coming to Selfridge right now, at least as of the last publication of the Air and Space Forces magazine. What are we up to? 89 of those out of 179 that have been ordered, that have rolled off the production line. So still relatively new in the fleet. We have the workhorse that's been around for a long time, which Leah is going to talk about, our KC-135s. And at one point we had over 600 of those in service. Now we're down to just under 400 of those in service. You think about how many that is. That's a lot of big airframes that are out there passing gas, if you will. We'll talk about that. Oh, if you don't know, by the way, this down here is called the mission capable rate. If you have 100 airplanes on any given day, how many are ready to go? 68% would mean 68 of the 100. So it's how maintained and ready are those particular planes. You'll see that, for example, the Whale here is at 49%, because when I went to elementary school at Travis Air Force Base in California, and that wasn't just recently, those planes were at that base then. Now we have 52 of them that they've been refurbished, re-engined and all through, but these carry outsized cargo. These are the really big planes that can carry really big things, but they're also very hard and complicated to maintain, and they're old, and that's why they're a little trouble with the mission capable rates. If you ever get to go fly on a C-5, if it's making an intermediate stop, I would definitely plan on potentially staying there, because odds are it's going to break when it lands and have to be there for a little while. The workhorse of our strategic fleet right now is C-17. If you want some insights on that, we can talk to Bronco back there and tell you a little bit more. But this is, when you see airlift, specifically talked about in our Air Force nowadays, you normally are going to see the C-17. They're everywhere doing everything. There's actually been talk lately about reopening the production line, potentially, of the C-17. We have the VIP transports of all different varieties, but that can include anywhere from versions of 737, 757, up to of course, Air Force One and 747, Gulfstreams, and most of these blue and white jets are all at Andrews in Maryland. There's a little 737. I'm telling you, I've gotten to ride on those a few times. That is a good first class seat you get in those things. Not a good first class seat. Hey. Well, you didn't ride in the back that much, okay? She was C-130s, but the web seat in the back there, tactical airlift into the tough places to go into. Anybody in the Army or Marine Corps certainly knows the C-130, what we would call tactical airlift. The H models are all pretty much gone out of the inventory, and, well, sorry, there are still some H's, and then the next one is where we have the J's, the upgraded version. In the 80s, they did a competition to replace the C-130. They came up with the YC-14 and YC-15 designs. They did all this prototype, the competition, and the outcome of that competition was the best thing to replace the C-130 is to build a new C-130. So they kept building them, and they're still building them to this day. All right, despite all that, looking at where they were going to try and replace it. We have a few specialty ones. There's one group at Air National Guard up in New York that has the ski plane equipped versions of the C-130 that also have the little JADO rockets, which are strap-on rockets to help it take off from the ice caps that take care of Greenland and South Pole and the operations down there in Antarctica. Air Force One, we're familiar with that. It's interesting that they don't ever show the mission capable rate. This does not include the recently acquired one that's going to get refurbished. All right, so let's talk real quick about what just happened in the news, all right? We had Operation Midnight Hammer. I don't know about you all, but when they said that there were B-2s that were taking off to go to Guam, I don't know about you, but I was thinking to myself, but as part of what we would call operational security, they did a high profile, hey look, the B-2s are taking off and going towards the Pacific. When in the night, they'd had a bunch of them that took off and went the other way. And headed all the way around the world. Was that the exact flight path that's shown up there right now? I believe this is what General Kane's, this was his slide that he showed of the flight path and all that went there. I'm not going to get into a lot of the particulars because this is a primer once again for the rapid global mobility. But if you think about what this means, our Air Force, along with the other services, very much a joint service operation, took off from Missouri, went all the way around the world, dropped this capability, we'll talk about the bombs and everything they used here in a minute, and all the way back again. No other Air Force, no other military in the world can do that. And one of the reasons is what we're going to talk about today. As innocuous as we seem when we talk about air refueling, that is what enables this type of mission to happen. How are we able to do this? Gas. You got to get gas there to get people there, to get the planes there to do what we do. It's an absolutely amazing capability. All right, the bomb that was used, 30,000 pound class bomb that was been designed by the Air Force for a while. The amazing part is if you look at it, there's only about 5,300 pounds of explosive in it. The rest is all the metal casing and everything so that when it hits at that velocity, it can penetrate the way that they want it to. So a very specifically designed weapon, 30,000 pound class. They tested it on a B-52, but the reality is a B-52 is not a penetrating bomber. It is designed to stand off at a distance. It has the radar cross-section of a barn door. All right? The B-2 has the radar section of a fly. is designed to go over a target. This is a gravity bomb, so they use it on the B-2. And if you look at the published capacity of a B-2, it doesn't equal 60,000 pounds, yet I'm going to show you a video that shows them dropping 2 of them, which adds up to, I don't know about you, but it adds up to 60,000 pounds in my book. So clearly it can carry 2 of these things. So let's run them real quick. Yeah, there's no sound with this, but in kind of slow motion, B-2, that is a big bomb. All right, you'll see the little fins for stabilization pop out right there at the end. And we're going to see the second one come out here. And I don't know if it's the chase plane dropping to take the picture or the B-2 itself, because it just shed 60,000 pounds of weight. It means it wants to fly more and it's going to pitch up. The kinetic energy involved with that is mind-blowing. But the interesting part of the technology is, think about it, the fuse. How far down is this going to go? How does it know how far it is and exactly when it's supposed to blow up? Is all part of the amazing technology that goes into the weaponeering. And then we have people with 80-pound brains that are experts on weaponeering, which means what does it take with what to hit this target in what place to make it blow up. So when they were looking at Ferdo, the place that was the primary target area, getting good intelligence, where in this complex are you supposed to hit? And from what I understand, and I think General Kane talked about it, we dropped one of these bombs in a hole, we dropped the second bomb in the same hole, we dropped the third bomb in the same hole. You get where I'm going with this, that there's more than just the one capability. It took a lot of science into going, what is going to happen to be able to take out that particular target. And I hope that that hole was in the right place. So what I can guarantee you is whatever you see on the network news is not correct. All right? That is just a given, because anything on the network news was planted there by somebody for some reason. All right? But once again, you have to trust in the very, very capable people that we have that do this kind of stuff. All right, so that being said, I'm going to go briefly into a real world weird thing here. I'm going to talk about our nuclear enterprise, because we just talked about a 30,000 pound bomb. We have this, our largest gravity dropped nuclear weapon is called the B-83. It can be used by either the B-52 or B-2 bombers. And it's a 1.2 megaton. 1.2 million tons of TNT equivalent. Now, to put that into perspective, we just talked about this massive ordnance penetrator, 30,000 pound bomb. I could line these 30,000 pound mops, starting at Selfridge, end to end along the road, all the way from Selfridge to Los Angeles. And I can explode them all at one time. And it would not equal the explosive force of one gravity drop nuclear weapon. Think about that one for a minute. And our biggest nuclear weapon, 1.2 megatons, is nothing. So it's about the third one on the scale right there. The largest nuclear weapon we ever detonated was known as Castle Bravo in the United States at 15 megatons. Of course, the Russians had to do better than that. And they dropped, I love the nickname of it, Tsar Bomba. They dropped Tsar Bomba up in the north. They felt the heat wave over 250 miles away from the impact site. And that thing clocked in, it was actually supposed to be 100 megatons, and I think it measured in at actually 58. And you can go on YouTube and find videos of all that, by the way. Kind of scary where we went with these things. But, all right, so we're going to end this with just a little bit of nuclear weapon trivia. What a great lead into Leah, all right? But nuclear explosion, all right. 125,000. That's how many nuclear weapons have been built through time. Since 1945, our country and Russia have built over 125,000 nuclear weapons. 97% of those are Russia, Soviet Union, or the United States. Very few outside of that realm. More than 10,000 are still active to this day, nuclear weapons around the world. There are 9 countries who have nuclear weapons. When you go look on the United Nations sites, and all these countries are known to have nuclear weapons. There's only one country ever in history that had nuclear weapons that does not any longer have nuclear weapons. Strangely enough, South Africa. At one point, they had 7. And then when that country went through its political turmoil, they gave them up. So that's the only country that ever had nuclear power and is no longer a nuclear power. Well, with that said, when we're talking about nuclear weapons, we're going to talk about rock stars. We're going to talk about big explosions. What a great lead-in to Leah to come up here, our rock star speaker of the day. Leah has been with the 127th and Michigan Guard for, I won't say a long time, but she has. She's got a great history back with the C-130s, up into the KC-135s, and certainly in my tenure that we had out at Selfridge, she was a key player in a lot of what we did on those missions. So it was a no-brainer for me to have her come in and talk a little bit about what they do out at Selfridge. And the fact that we just did this mission all the way over to Iran and did this strike, I think is a great primer to talk about the primary missions of the Air Force, one of which is rapid global mobility. And what a better place to talk about what enables all that. Leah, come on up. The floor is going to be yours.
So thank you, General Slocum, and thank you for the invite, and thank you everybody for being here today. I thought when I would come here I wouldn't know a lot, but I know almost everybody, and so it's really great to be with old friends and people who love Airpower. Well, we're not going to go there because, like you said, I was a late bloomer. I joined the Air National Guard as my first assignment here at Selfridge when I was 29 years old. So it took me a while to figure it out, but that's a great recruiting for anybody that you know. It's never too late to serve, and there's lots of different ways to serve. And speaking of service, you know, there's a lot of people, all of you and some of our service members who do a lot for our country, and some of those things, you know, you maybe wish you had kept a picture of. And a lot of the pictures that you're going to see today, a lot of them are my own, some of them I took off the internet, and some of them I wish I hadn't deleted from my phone, because I had a great picture in my memory of General Slocum when we were over in Latvia with one of our partners.
I know where this is going.
For an exercise, and you know, there's this big wreath on his head that the Latvians gave him, and looked like the Barbara Seville, you know, if you picture that. And I wish I had that, but I just appreciate everybody in this room, and I appreciate the invite. Like General Slocum said, I've been with the Michigan Air National Guard, and I've been flying. Basically, if you think about what we're going to talk about today, just as General Slocum said, it's really teed us up. We had talked about doing this presentation before Midnight Hammer had gotten underway, and before any of us knew about that. But it was a really great lead-in to talk about why rapid global mobility, or what I would call global reach, is so important. I was gonna make the slide, but that's me. So global reach. That's what I like to call it, and it's very simple. It's plain and simple what it means. And what it does is it gives our civilian leadership, it gives our country opportunities to have different tools of deterrence or influence around the world. Like General Slocum said, there is no other country that can do what we do because of our aerial refueling. You might have great bombs, and General Slocum can talk about bombs. You might have great weapons, but if you can't reach out and hold somebody and hold leverage over them, what does that do for you, right? And that is where the United States Air Force really stands out, and what gives our civilian leadership some really great options in their quiver when it comes to influencing the safety of our world.
I can do that. Yeah, I can do that.
What did you like? Oh, thank you. So going back, you know, we talked a little bit about nuclear weapons, and we'll talk a lot about that today, and I am open to answer any questions. I even brought props so that you're going to feel like you're in the flight room when we talk about some air refueling. So please feel free to interrupt me, because this is, I do that to people all the time, and I'd love, while we've got the pictures up here, we can talk about some of the things that might interest you. But let's go back to the beginning. Really, 1929 is when, have anybody ever heard of the question mark? Of course, the question marks. Well, this is a picture of it. This was the first time that we actually took fuel from one aircraft through a hose and put it into another aircraft. In 1923, there was some air refueling. It really started in the Navy, where pilots were trying to figure out how to extend the range of their aircraft, so they could loiter longer, stay airborne, go farther, right? Reach out, global reach. 1929 is when Major Spatz commanded the question mark, and they actually did it with a hose. There was a lot of experimentation after that, so just imagine in World War II, the B-17s, if they could have had their fighter escorts a little bit longer, and how much more survivable some of our B-17 crews could have been if we had figured out our air refueling at that time. So 1929 is when it really began. 1948, it took a lot of experimentation before we actually opened up our first 2 air refueling squadrons, and it was with a KC-97. It didn't last very long, and really the bedrock and the hallmark of our air refueling today is the KC-135. It still is. Like General Slocum said, the KC-46 Pegasus is coming online, but the KC-135 is the preponderance of the aircraft and is the preponderance of the missions right now. And it has been flying since 1957. So we want to talk about age and old. 60 plus years that we are maintaining and operating this aircraft. Now, it's had a lot of upgrades. It has new engines, it has new avionics, and we continue to invest money into the KC-135. It was built to be mated with the B-52 bomber and to be a nuclear deterrent. But it has become so much more than that. So today, these are just some of my own pictures, but we just dragged the Blue Angels to their air show over the July 4th weekend. Your hometown guard is continuing to support air refueling around the globe at this very moment. So we are very active in all of the theaters around the globe, but particularly, as you know, and as General Slocum talked about, in our central area of command in the Middle East and in the Pacific. I put some numbers. I did math. You're not supposed to do math in public, so I did it beforehand. But what's really interesting, so the KC-135 holds about 200,000 pounds of gas. That's about 29,000 gallons. So gallons is what we put in our gas tanks, right? Through the rigid boom that we have on the back of the aircraft, we can push over 900 gallons per minute into the receiving aircraft. And there's lots of different aircraft that we can refuel. So if you put that into something that you understand, if you think about a vehicle, and you think it takes about 30 minutes for us if we wanted to give all of our gas away, and that's where the term tanker towed comes from, take off and die. You can give all your gas if you really had to out of that aircraft. But that's about 1,500 vehicles. Like if you were gassing up your car and you could gas them all, it's about 1,500 vehicles in 30 minutes that you could put fuel into, just to kind of give you an idea of how much fuel that really is. That we can refuel to get either people, equipment, bombs, fighters around the globe. There's different ways that we do it. I just wanted to put up here because I had to have a C-130 picture in my presentation, if you know me. But there are other variants of tankers that are out there. There are C-130s that do a lot of special operations refueling. There are some KC-135s that also do some low-level refueling. KC-10s, if you've ever heard of the DC-10 variant, the KC-10s are just been retired, but they were also a refueler. But the preponderance of it is coming from the KC-135 and still is. So I just kind of showed you where, a 130 with some hoses coming out, and I just thought that was really cool because that crane helicopter is carrying a F-35. I mean, right? That American military is amazing, right? This is a picture from one of my local training sorties of the B-2. I thought you would all really enjoy that, especially with what we just got to see on television, essentially. This is an F-35 being refueled, and if you notice, there's different variants of the F-35, right? The Navy also flies them, and this is a drogue. So we have on the 135 a rigid boom, but we can swap that out in about 45 minutes, and we can put a drogue on, and so we can also do drogue. The new KC-46 will be able to do both at the same time, so they won't have to reconfigure on the ground. They'll be able to actually offload to either a boom, we call it, or a drogue. And that's just...
Real quick, if I could just editorialize, if you all don't know, the way the Navy refuels is completely different than the way the Air Force refuels, and they're not compatible. Go figure. That's the way things work with it, so yes, you have to accommodate the two different types of refueling to be able to service everybody.
And we'll talk about some of the mechanics of that here in just a minute too. And the last picture I just had up there was our beautiful KC-135s up at K.I. Sawyer over the summer with the Northern Lights. And the Northern Lights were really beautiful. One of our crew chiefs took that, came out in the middle of the night when the Northern Lights were going, and that's one of our tankers up there from this summer. So I already kind of talked a little bit about this, but the KC-135, and if anything is going to happen around the world, the KC-135 is what enables it to be able to either stay on station. What I kind of put here was to show all the different types of aircraft that we do fly. So whether you need to loiter over a target, or you need to get a bunch of tanks or cargo, for example, in a C-17, and you need to get it into a hot zone very fast, very quick. We don't have to go into country and set up things. We can get it there like that, right? We can get it there within whatever the flight time it takes for us to get to where we need to go, because we can refuel any of our cargos, any of our bombers, and any of our fighters, including some of our airborne command and control suites that we have as well too. And I've got a picture of an E4 up here, which is a 747 variant that's used as an airborne command and control. We've got a few of those in the inventory, and those are the types of things that like after Ukraine kicked off, we got those airborne, and we had people up there at command and control 24/7 just in case we needed it, and they're kept airborne by tankers. When we did some of the flights out of Afghanistan, when we had the withdrawal, we kept a lot of our C-17s airborne with people on board until we had countries that could accept them, and we had people that could process them and make sure that they were taken care of. And so air refueling enabled that to keep people safe and to also give, again, our civilian leadership some options. So allows them to respond, gives them more capabilities than just the aircraft themselves. So a little piece of trivia that I wanted to share, something that's a little bit different about our squadron that we have here in Michigan. Does anybody recognize this aircraft? Everybody, Habu? Yeah. This is a SR-71, and what is unique about this picture, if you take a look, that is one of our tail numbers. It's 80129. It's one of the tails that we fly here at Selfridge. And it is what this particular picture is, a KC-135Q model. We fly T models out at Selfridge, or Rs and Ts. R is the variant that is mostly prevalent. But there's two squadrons, us in Pittsburgh, that have the T variant. And what is different about the T variant is we can actually carry two different types of fuels on our aircraft. The KC-135 has 10 fuel tanks. And because it's an old airplane, we manually move fuel around between those tanks with pumps. And we do mental math to keep our CG when we're offloading. But our variant of the 135, we can actually carry a separate fuel. So the SR-71, when it was in service, carried a different type of fuel because of the high altitudes that it flew at, had to have ice inhibitors in its fuel and other additives. And so we could give them that fuel and burn a different fuel in our own engines. And so we've done this, we've used this to do like fuel testing, things like that now, today. So we don't actually refuel the SR-71, I wish we did. But our aircraft that are here on the flight line was the squadron that did that. Just a little trivia. Sergeant Major, yes. Oh, Mr. Lamparty, yeah.
You mentioned different fuels. I thought that was one of the changes that the military made several years ago, to go to one fuel that powers ground vehicles, air vehicles, everything.
So we use a militarized variant called JP8, which is very similar to Jet A. We also do put some different inhibitors in there, but I believe we've got some ground equipment that can burn it, but we still burn avgas in a lot of our stuff, from what I know. I'm not really a subject. I'm getting a nod from General Brancato, but I can't really speak to, as far as I know, we're not burning just one fuel.
For our ground vehicles, we are.
On the Army side?
Yes, for our ground vehicles, we are.
What do you burn?
JP8.
Oh, okay, there you go, Army. So right, we can't do the same thing that the Army does.
Hey, y'all come from us anyway, so you might as well.
How do you spell joint, right?
Hey Leah, did you mention why the SR-71 has a special fuel?
I talked about the icing inhibitors.
Okay.
Is there anything you wanted to add
No,
to that?
just that it was a unique fuel, which is why that was all designed that way. It was different than all the other ones.
We can actually burn a lot of different types of fuels, but the maintainers don't like that because then it drives a lot of maintenance on those engines too. So this is the KC-46. So I'm not an expert. I'm going to tell you right now. You're not supposed to do that, right, when you're standing in front of people. I'm not an expert on the KC-46, but I'm becoming one. As you know, the next tanker that the Air Force is buying is the KC-46. It's based on the 767 variant. They call it the Franken tanker, probably not to Boeing's face, but it's got a 787 cockpit, it's got 777 wings, it's got a 767 based on that for its fuselage. It's a larger aircraft. It only carries 212,000 pounds, so it's not that much more from a fuel standpoint as the volume, but it only has the 2 engines, and so it's a far more efficient aircraft because the engine's on it with the 2. But it also has the ability, as I said before, to refuel both with a drogue and with a boom. The other thing that the KC-46 is bringing is also a lot of other mission capabilities that are still being developed. And a lot of those are in the command and control area, where there's a lot of cargo space on this aircraft, and there's a lot of things that they can put on this aircraft, and there's a lot of different configurations that they can do with it. And so it can carry a lot more people, carry a lot more cargo than the 135, and also be able to have the variability of the different fuel, the fuel offloads. So much more capable aircraft in a lot of sense. Also, the other big difference between, I would say the upgrading capability is that it can also receive fuel. So it can refuel itself, not just one plane, right? But 2, right? That's why I have these. But I'll get to this in a minute. Thank you for keeping me in check there. But this is a look at the KC-46. Another big difference, like I said, it can receive fuel, but if you notice, it does not have a window back here, and you might not have noticed that in the KC-135, but we actually have a person in the 135 laying down, looking out a window, flying the boom. With the 46, it's all done up front with a visual system. And if any of you have read about it, and I know it's been in the magazine, they're still working on upgrading that visual system. Just like any weapon system, when it first comes out, there's a lot of kinks usually to work out, and this is one of them. General Slocum stole my slide, so
It was raisin slide.
that's true. But so what I hope that this does for you is kind of bring all together how it's important. I brought a book here called Passing Gas, because I just wanted to say that because everybody wants, But it is actually a book about stories from the Vietnam era, about a lot of saves for aircraft. The THUD community, the Thunder Chiefs, the 105s, loved the tankers because when they would have a lot of battle damage, the tankers would go in and get them and make sure that they got to a spot where they could either eject or land. And so there's a lot of stories, probably unofficial stories, I would say, of tankers going in and saving a lot of aircraft during the Vietnam era. The tankers today, they're considered a high value asset, but essentially they are going into the same airspace as our fighters and our bombers, and in a lot of cases are acting as decoys. We know decoys, right, with the B-2s, but they're there and they are extending the range of those fighters and making sure that they can stay on target, particularly in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which is where I have most of my tanker experience. There's nothing like having an active troops in contact and having a fighter not be able to stay on station and take care of those ground troops. And so those are just some of the things that the tankers do. They're right there with those folks, particularly when we have air superiority and we're flying there and helping with the fight. Just as we did with Operation Midnight Hammer, I know Scott's probably got some questions too. We were talking before, so you can start throwing them out. But the operational security on this mission was very, very good, and it continues to be very good. But for those of you who look at FlightAware, or those of you who were following it on the news, there's a lot of messaging from our country there to try to provide a deterrent to get, in this case, Iran to come to the table. And being able to see the armada of tankers, and that's kind of what the press is calling it, heading over to CENTCOM, and then having the B-2s take off, go in different directions, right? All of that took a lot of air refueling to kind of keep that airborne and to make that happen. And so this is like a perfect demonstration, a modern demonstration of the options and the deterrent that the tank provides. And that's not even talking about the nuclear enterprise, which General Slocum talked quite a bit about. But any questions? So this took a lot of refuelings, right? Which is what is trying to be demonstrated. The B-2s took off from Whiteman Air Force Base, and they flew 36 hours on average. There were different sortie lengths. But what they did was they had several refuelings. So if they're carrying 60,000 pounds of bombs, right? Chances are they probably didn't take off with a full tank of gas. So what they do is they get their weapons airborne, and the tankers meet up with them right away, and then they give them gas. And so then, flight planning, somewhere along here in the route, they are refueled again in order for them to make it to their target and then to also return. So I brought my sticks, my airplanes on a sticks, just because I wanted to act cool and shoot my watch with you, because that's what we do. But refueling, particularly in this case, if you imagine, I'm sure a lot of you have thought, and right, Karen, I'm like, Karen, what kind of questions am I going to get? What do the B-2 pilots do? Like for 36 hours, right? What is it like? How do they go to the bathroom? How do they, snacks, lots of snacks, I'm sure. But it is something that we practice. So these pilots are, in some cases, if it comes to a critical part in their mission, they're actually taking speed. So they take go pills to make sure that they are alert, and they're not going, when you air refuel, and I've got a video for you here, you have two aircraft in very close proximity to each other. And is anybody in here a boater? Does anybody boat? So fluid dynamics. It's exactly the same in the air as it is on the water. When you have something moving through that space, it's creating a big bow wave. And if you have something like a C-17 that can move fast and it's big, it really moves your aircraft around too. And so I make it sound really hard, and after you practice it, you can do it safely. But if there's a lot of turbulence, or there's a lot of cloud cover, rain, thunderstorms, if you're having to do a lot of maneuvering, if there's borders of other countries that you can't fly into, right, there can be a lot of maneuvering that's necessary. And when we air refuel, we can do those maneuvers safely, and we have procedures to do that, and that's pretty much what we practice. So that's what I'm going to show you with my sticks here.
Tanker, another tanker, sorry I didn't have a fighter one, right? But normally when we air refuel, we could have a formation of tankers and take on multiple receivers, or we could have just one, so we do it both. So if you ever are plane watching out here, you'll see us take off in formation. We'll do that if we're going to escort a squadron of fighters across the ocean. We'll take multiple tankers and we'll take a squadron of fighters and we'll escort them that way. But when you are flying along and you're going to do a refueling, if you have just the tanker pilot's job is to be as stable as they possibly can. The receiver's job is to hold the position. And so there are markings underneath the aircraft that, depending on what aircraft is coming up behind, they will look to put their aircraft into a position right, oh, I don't have any rear flight tank. It falls off. Okay. They are looking to hold their airplane in a position that's about 20 feet, because the hose is about 20 feet. So there's a rigid boom and then there's a hose that comes out the boom. And you've got about 15 to 20 feet or so. And so this airplane, right hand, is trying to hold this position. And then you have a boom operator who does the work and flies that boom into the receptacle of the aircraft. If you look at the different pictures here of the different aircraft, they have boom receptacles in all different spots. Some of the fighters, it's behind the canopy. If you look at the B-2, if maybe go back and find the B-2, it's on the back of the jet. Some of them are on the side. So they just know, based off of the markings underneath our aircraft, what to look for. So they try to line things up, right? I'm not right. So that particular pilot learns what the sight picture looks like, and they hold their airplane right there. Often there's not vertical clearance. So if they are to move forward, the aircraft could collide. So they hold it right there. But as they come in like a boat, they're pushing this huge bow wave. And so as a tanker pilot, you know when that plane is getting close because it starts pushing your tail up, right? So now you're trying to compensate for that. And at the same time, if they do a move to the left or move to the right, it'll actually move the yoke of the tanker aircraft. So if you're an experienced tanker pilot, you can watch the trim on your aircraft, which is like how we keep stable flight, and you can watch it run and spin, and you can watch your yoke go back and forth, and if you know what you're looking for, you know exactly where that aircraft is behind you, because you can't see it. But if it moves onto this side, it pushes your aircraft, because that bow wave is going to be moving your aircraft around. And so that just comes with experience. So if you get into turbulence, right? The good thing, just like a boat, turbulence, typically you're riding in the same waves, right? If it's really turbulent and it's really choppy, then that can get dangerous. But in general, we can handle moderate turbulence and still stay connected, because the way that the boom is designed, it has a rigid exterior and then a rigid hose inside. That hose can actually go in and out of that boom. And so as the aircraft are in close proximity to each other and maybe hitting different turbulence, it'll kind of accordion. And so we have the capacity to accept some of that. And that's why the boom operator is generally kind of nervous during the refuelings, because they're just waiting to say, this doesn't look right. They have a certain envelope that they know that their equipment can handle. And if it gets outside that envelope, we just move away from each other. And then we try it again. And that's what we train, and that's what we do all the time. And we do it without crashing. General Slocum, you look like you want to say something.
Breakaway, breakaway, breakaway.
That's right. So
That's
that's
the radio call that happens when they take the probe and pull it all the way back and they shove the engine forward to get away from somebody who's not being stable back behind.
So breakaway is what we call, oh gosh, what do we call it? A protected phrase. You don't say it because if you say it, people have to do it. So because again, the pilots in this aircraft are blind. They don't see what's going on. And the pilots in this aircraft are cocky. Right? So if you hear the boom operator go, breakaway, 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 you're just, right? Everybody's got to do it. It's the trust that we build in our procedures.
It's like the same word in a fighter, for example, that you don't say that word unless you say it 3 times emphatically. It's the same thing if I was flying in a fighter jet that was a multi-person, front back seat type of a thing. If you use the word bail out, that's the same thing. You don't use that word unless it's bail out, bail out, bail out. You can talk about ejecting, you can talk about stepping over the side, you can talk about whatever, but you don't say the B word.
Can I ask
Scott?
a question?
Sure.
There's approximately 35 tankers. And now, did the tankers take off in the same place the fighters did, all 35? And do they stay with them, or how does that work?
So we rarely do that, actually. So sometimes, and maybe. How do you like my answer? Right. So you can. We actually call it a buddy takeoff. If we are going to drag a unit somewhere and we happen to be with them, all of the fighters will take off in front of us, and we'll take off behind them and get in front of them, and then lead that formation on wherever we're going. A lot of times, what we do is called a rendezvous, and it's not as exciting as it sounds, but there's different.
It can be exciting.
It can. That's true. But there's different types. You guys want me to use my microphone? I'm sorry about that. So a rendezvous, there's different types, and we practice those as well too, and it's all based on timing. And when you take a check ride, your rendezvous has to be within 60 seconds. So that's how close. So you can actually have aircraft coming from all over the world, which in this case, that's exactly what happened, because that was a 36-hour flight. So it didn't circumvent, but essentially was, right, circumventing the Earth. And so you had tankers taking off and meeting it. In those rendezvous, what we do is everybody knows what time. It's based off of Zulu, so it doesn't matter where you take off from in the world. And we know that we are going to meet up at that time, and that's our contract. And we do everything in our power to always be there. Always. That's like the one thing that you have to do. And if you don't, you better be talking to somebody because that aircraft needs that gas. So if we have critical missions, a lot of times we'll use more than one tanker as well. And we'll fly the tanker in formation so that the receivers have multiple options. So if we have an equipment failure, because one of the things that you can do when you're refueling is run the boom into it and then dent the boom, and now the boom doesn't latch into their receptacle anymore, right? So on really critical missions, we will have multiple aircraft airborne. So Operation Midnight Hammer, 125 plus aircraft. The number of tankers that I've heard might be even higher than 35. The operational security on this mission, the commanders of the units participating don't know the details. Here's the other thing too that's really great about air refueling. And General Slocum, you kind of said, I don't know if this is the actual path that they took. But what this path demonstrates is that a lot of times, particularly if you're carrying a large weapon, if the United States wants to be unilateral in their actions, diplomatic clearances, that airspace over countries, a lot of countries don't want you flying over their land if you're going to drop a bomb or a nuclear bomb. And so a lot of times the path that we take might be a lot longer than the direct path, which that's where there's usually multiple refuelings that'll happen within there. So it's hard to tell you exactly how many they did. But I can tell you that after they drop a bomb, their adrenaline is through the roof, I imagine.
and the refueling becomes a lot more sporty, right? If they're tired, if they're amped up, and that's just human nature.
Ron, you got a question?
I always thought that refueling was a development that was only possible after the development of jet aircraft. How do you refuel a plane when you've got a big prop turning out in front?
That's a great question. So C-130s, we refuel C-130s, and they've got like 4 of those beaters out there, and it's just the placement of where the receptacle is on the aircraft, and we avoid that area. Same with, right, and helicopters typically have a long probe that sticks out to try to get it outside of the rotor. But if you've seen, there's videos, particularly with helicopters, if they start hitting like a pilot-induced oscillation, where they can chop the hose off too. And on all of those systems, they also have an emergency jettison where if that happens, they can get rid of that hose too, because it can mess up the tanker aircraft as well if that hose is just out there flailing.
I noticed your first slide showed the hose coming in from the back of the airplane. How in the hell do you do that?
So that was just an experiment. And so
They had a wing walker come up and grab the hose and plug it in for the question mark.
So that is very true. So the first ones that they did, starting in probably in the early 1900s, I think, like 1903, they tried to start picking up gas cans with like hooks, kind of like, because it was the Navy, right? So they're trying to hook stuff. This is like an advanced development, but General Slocum's exactly right. They actually had a wing walker go out and grab the hose and put it in. The one that they did prior to that in 1923, they actually handed over a gas can to the wing walker. So I didn't include that because this seemed more advanced. But that's why I think it didn't take off right away. I don't think the pilots wanted to go out there. Sergeant Major?
I got a question for you, ma'am. Like vehicles, do you have something like that for your refuelers, where you can refuel partner nation aircrafts, or?
Thank you. That's a great question. So we only have the drogue and the boom, and we have standardized to those 2. However, part of your question, we do refuel with our partner nations. So we train with them. One of the things that we do in our unit is we support the NATO schoolhouse for the E-3 Sentries, because NATO flies those, and we'll go over and train with their pilots, which is different because of the language, right? So English is the language of aviation. So no matter where you go in the world, everyone's supposed to be speaking English. Doesn't always happen, but they're supposed to be speaking English. So, but there's still a language barrier, and so learning that and getting good at that is very valuable. Plus, NATO doesn't have tankers inherent to them, so we go over and support their schoolhouse every year. And the tanker community is always there, actually, but we go once a year as a unit to support that.
Early on, General Slocum mentioned some of the capabilities of the U.S. Air Force versus the Chinese Air Force. Do the Chinese have the same refueling capabilities we have? Can they reach over here from China?
So I'm not an expert in that, and I think General Slocum wants to talk to your point too, but we are the only, so while we refuel our partners, and there are some small fleets of refuelers, and there are also commercial. People are buying up the older military, and there's also commercial companies that are getting started that are doing the air refueling. But China, my understanding is that they do not, but they are developing longer range weapons. And so General Slocum...
They do have a handful of tankers, not nearly the hundreds that we have. So they don't have the capacity, but they do have the technical capability to do it.
What is their tanker? I'm not...
Version of the TU, what is it, the swing wing bomber thing they've got?
The blackjack?
think it's a Tu-60, but yeah, it's a version of a bomber that they converted to a tanker. But I mean, they have maybe dozens, where we have hundreds.
So this is, well, I'll hit play here in a minute. This is from my phone. So you can go back and lay with the boom operator and stick your cell phone out there. But this is a refueling of an F-15. So try to put some F-15s in here too, because that's also the future of Selfridge. This is not an EX. However, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll speed up the video because it can be really boring to watch the planes try to come into position because they move like this. But this is a sped up version of us doing some training with an F-15.
Yeah, sped up.
See, generally they'll come in a couple of times just to practice, right? Because that's the hard part. So they practice doing that. I do have a, if somebody wants to see the C-130, I have some C-130 pictures too of them being refueled. But I'll end here and kind of wrap up to kind of talk about where the Michigan Air National Guard fits into this. Obviously, I've been talking from my experience and sharing with you some of the stories. But we have one squadron of the 135s that are out at Selfridge right now. They used to be the reserve unit prior to the BRAC, for any of you who were here before 2007. The 927th Air Reserve wing flew them, and then when they BRAC, they moved to MacDill, and the 171st started flying the 135s. We are now, as you know, there's been an announcement, we are working towards the conversion and the transition to the KC-46 Pegasus. So right now we are slated to get those. If you've been following in the news, Boeing is behind on some of their development schedules. Right now we are scheduled to get them in 2029. I would not lay any bets on that. If I'm a betting person, I would say it's probably closer to 2030, 2031. But we will be the 7th squadron of KC-46 Pegasus to get their jets. After that, there is one more squadron that still needs to be, to still have their aircraft built for them, and that has yet to be determined where those are going to go. And then after that, the Air Force has not committed yet. They've talked about buying a few more. And then they've talked about buying more in the future. If you've read, they talk about a gap tanker, they call it. They don't know if they're going to buy something different or if they're going to just jump and go right to the next generation air refueler, which we call NGAS, because it sounds like gas, right? So what is the future of air refueling? A lot of people are saying that the KC-135 is going to fly at least till 100 years. And so to put that in context, that means that the mom of the last pilot to fly it hasn't been born yet. So, and it's already 60 plus years old. But coming from a unit that does the maintenance on them, we have amazing maintenance and the aircraft are very safe to fly. But we still want to be modernized. In case anybody in the room has a checkbook for that. So we're super excited, we're very humbled. There's a lot of new mission to actually learn about this aircraft, even though it looks very similar to what we're doing now. There's a lot more mission capability, and so we're looking forward to that. We're getting ready to build a big new 2-bay hangar to fit them, and all of that is coming to Selfridge here in the future. Karen, I'm going to ask you first. Any questions? Did I hit them all? Good.
So you're saying that the tanker's got multiple gas tanks, and you can transfer the fuel from one tank to the other. Is it just one tank that the 135 fuels from, or can it all of it?
So that's a great question. We have 2 primary tanks, but it all goes out to the back. So we pump in order to distribute the fuel, we have a bunch of tanks in the wings. We have a tank in the front, we have a tank in the middle, and a tank in the back. All of it gets pumped to that back so that it can hit the boom. However, We can also pump fuel from our front tank, and we can use all of the fuel. So we can drain, pump, we can just move it all around for any situation that we need. Yeah, it's a long, right? Can you see my gears grinding? Because if you have like a very large aircraft, you're pumping from like everywhere. You're draining and pumping all at the same time because you're trying to get as much fuel to them as you possibly can, and you're giving them 100,000 pounds of gas, and it's happening in 15 minutes. And so everything's going and pumping and draining. But there's two primary tanks that we can pump from.
Are you maintaining your CG? Do computers do that, or are you doing the mental math as you're offloading?
So in the Pegasus, it's done automatically with computers. In the 135, we do mental math. But it's set up to work out.
Okay.
Just real quick. So it's all pumping simultaneously to also balance the aircraft as tanks are being
So,
empty?
yep, so we're deciding that manually. So we have 4 engine-driven hydraulic pumps that actually pump the gas. And when you turn them on in the aircraft, you can actually hear it go thump, because they're that big of a pump. And depending, if an A-10 came up to the boom and I turned on all the pumps, it would shoot them off, because it's so powerful. So it depends on the aircraft. So certain aircraft can only handle 1 pump. Some can handle 2, some can take all 4. Obviously, the larger aircraft, the heavier aircraft can take more, so it just depends.
But internally, it's been redistributed to maintain.
Yep, so every tank has a pump, and every tank has a drain. And so the way that the aircraft is designed, a lot of the tanks gravity feed anything in the wing, so we'll gravity feed and move it to some of the tanks, but we can also pump the fuel through we have multiple manifolds. And that's where I'm saying it's mental math, and it's intimidating at first, but it's set up to work. So when you kind of know, you learn about how to move it around, but you do have a CG that you can play with that's fairly large. It's 10%, so it's a pretty big CG that you can actually get the aircraft, but you can start to feel it. If you're not doing it right, like you'll see the nose is coming up, right? You can feel it, and the aircraft talks to you very well that way.
Are all modern aircraft designed for aerial refueling, and is there standardization from one aircraft to another?
So not all aircraft, but militarily believe they're mostly being designed for it. Like even like our command and control, like the 747s have been modified with receptacles to take on fuel. And there's two standards. So yeah, you got to pick one or the other. The Navy there's the probe and drogue, and there is the receptacle. I mean, it's the boom. So there's 2 standards. I don't think they're going to one that I know of right now. It offers different types of capability. So think autonomous, like moving forward with autonomous. A basket is a lot easier to hit than have a boom fly into a receptacle too. So the basket is much slower. So everything's got, like anything, you have to kind of make some operational decisions. So it's good to have that flexibility. So that's why I think they maintain both. Did you want to?
No, you're exactly right, though. I mean, as much as I give the Navy grief and everything else, it's easier. They can do multiple aircraft. It's slower to refuel. The reason the Air Force went with the boom was because of bombers. Just like you said, it was designed to refuel the B-52s, which want a lot of gas quickly. So that's why they went with the 2 different systems based on different requirements. And you're right, in an F-16, especially when we had external tanks, and the center line was very delicate about that. We would get pressure disconnects all the time. We would be telling the tankers to tune it down on the pressure and everything else, because they could refuel us way faster than we could suck it in.
I'll stick around. So thank you very much again. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Leah.
Appreciate it.
And by the way, you've given me back PTSD, because as much as she says a lot of this stuff, just fly a stable platform, some of the scariest moments, some of the hairiest, weirdest, stupid human tricks I've ever seen in fighter jets involves going up and tanking. Most of that they never know about because it happens all behind them. But I'm telling you what, it's I could tell you stories, we won't at this point, but it's a lot of interesting stories. But it takes gas to do anything, and it's how we're able to do the mission that we do. So a big shout out to everybody on the Rapid Global Mobility mission set that makes a lot of this happen. Bronco, do you want to say anything? I don't want to not give you the opportunity if you want to come up and...
Awesome. And this is awesome to have everyone learn more about what we do at Selfridge. I just want to extend an opportunity. If you haven't been to Selfridge or you haven't been there in a while, please come out and take a look at what we're up to. She mentioned we're doing a lot of infrastructure upgrades. We had last month, we had ACC, AMC, and NGB, like over 100 people come out and look at what the infrastructure growth is going to be at Selfridge. It's going to be about a 10-year effort of hundreds of millions of dollars are going into the future of Selfridge. So huge growth, huge potential, and we're always recruiting. And I don't want to ever miss an opportunity to say thank you to the local community. It would not happen for us to get future missions without the support from our local community. And when AMC, ACC, and NGB were out here, it changed the perception of what they had about Selfridge when they came, because they got so much support from our local community. So thank you all for that. And again, please come out and visit if you haven't come out in a while. And we're recruiting, we're growing. We have hundreds of vacancies we're always trying to fill. So if you know anybody that's interested, we got spots for them. So thanks again for all your support.
So Carl, Ron, go sign up to be in the 127th Wing, all right? There's so many things that you brought up. Thank you, Leah. There's some great stories, but we'll do that all as sidebars. I want to be a good steward of your time. So have a wonderful air and space power rest of your day. And I hope that this was some good information. Stand by to get an invitation for next month, which will be at Starbase, STEM education for elementary school kids, an amazing program. You'll want to be part of that. Take care and have an awesome day.